Level 1. The invisible ceiling. You were 19 years old, and you were standing in the break room of a distribution warehouse at 6:15 a.m., waiting for next week's schedule to go up on the corkboard next to the fire exit. The man beside you has been waiting for this same schedule for 11 years. He is 34. He has a daughter. He coaches her soccer team on Saturdays when the hours allow. He is not unhappy exactly. He has just stopped asking certain questions. You can see it in the way he holds his coffee, not like something he's enjoying, like something he's using, a prop for the waiting. You look at him and feel something you cannot name yet, not pity, something closer to terror. Nobody in your family sat you down and said, "This is the ceiling." Nobody handed you a document. It was quieter than that. It was your mother's jaw tightening when the car made a noise it didn't make yesterday. Your father changing the subject when someone mentioned retirement. The field trip permission slip that didn't get signed because the fee was $14 and it was the wrong week. You absorbed it the way children absorb everything, completely, without knowing you were doing it. Money was something that ran out before the end of the month. You understood that before you understood most things. You understood that some people had more of it, but more felt like a different country, somewhere on a map your family had never been given access to. The schedule goes up on the corkboard at 6:22 a.m. The man beside you finds his name, nods once, takes his coffee back to the floor. You stand there for another moment, then you walk out. Not just out of the break room, out of the building. You don't finish the shift. You don't collect the $94 you are owed for the morning. You walk into the parking lot in the October cold and stand next to your car and stare at the building. You don't have a plan. You don't have a business idea, or capital, or a network. You have a feeling in your chest that is low grade and constant, like static. The feeling of a map that doesn't match the terrain you are standing on. That feeling is the beginning of everything. Level 2. The first attempt. You are 21 years old, and you have just put $3,400 into a product-based business you read about in a forum at midnight while your roommate was asleep. You spent 3 months researching before you spent the money. You filled 2 notebooks. You built a spreadsheet that projected revenue across 12 months under 3 scenarios. In all 3 scenarios, the business works. The business does not work. It produces $820 in revenue over 4 months, and then produces nothing. The $3,400 becomes a number you carry everywhere, not on a spreadsheet anymore, in your body. You wake up at 3 a.m. and the number is there. You sit in class and the number is there. You don't tell your mother about the $3,400. She would offer to help. She doesn't have $3,400. That would be worse than the loss. The voice arrives around week 3. Calm, reasonable, and it sounds exactly like every person who has ever looked at you with that particular expression. The one that means they care about you and don't believe in you at the same time. The voice says, "Nobody from where you're from has done this." That is not bad luck. That is data. You sit with that voice for a week. Here is what failure actually teaches you, and this is not what anyone told you it would teach you. Failure doesn't teach you what to do differently. It teaches you what you're made of when the number says you were wrong and everything in you wants to go back. Those are not the same lesson. The first one is tactical. The second one is the only one that matters. You don't go back. Not because you're built from something exceptional, because the version of you that accepts the schedule on the corkboard no longer exists. You looked at that man's coffee cup and something in you closed a door permanently. You can feel the door. It doesn't open from this side. You start again. Level 3. The grind. You are 23 years old and your bank account does not reflect the hours you have put in. This is the section of the story that gets skipped in every highlight reel, every interview, every LinkedIn post from someone who figured it out. It gets skipped because it is ugly and slow, and the only thing that happens in it is that you keep going. And keeping going is not a story. It is just time passing under pressure. You are running a service business. 12 clients. Monthly retainers averaging $400 each. $4,800 a month gross. After expenses and taxes, $2,900 in your pocket. You are working 70 hours a week to produce an income that is less than you would make in a mid-level corporate job. Your friends have stopped inviting you to things. Not dramatically. They just stopped expecting you to say yes and then stopped asking. Sacrifice is the price of the goal. You know that. Sacrifice still costs something even when you choose it. In November of that year, revenue drops 40% in a single month. No explanation you can find. 2 clients cancel within a week of each other. You go through every variable at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday with your laptop on your kitchen table, a coffee that has gone cold, and a growing suspicion that everything you have built is more fragile than you understood. You check your acquisition numbers, your delivery metrics. You find nothing that explains the drop. You sit with the possibility that this is random, that businesses sometimes contract for no reason analysis can reach, that you have not yet built something real. You don't sleep that night. You rebuild your client pipeline from scratch the next morning. By February, revenue is $9,200 for the month. You don't know yet that this is the number that doesn't go back down. Level 4, the first real number. You are 24 years old, and it is a Tuesday in March, and your income for the previous month was $6,400. Not net worth, not evaluation, cash income, after expenses, after taxes, from a business you built with $3,400 that failed, and 2 notebooks, and 4 years of hours that didn't convert for a long time, and then did. $6,400 is the number your father made in a month in the best year he can remember. You know this because he mentioned it once, casually, the way people mention the specific coordinates of something they are proud of. He said it was a good year. He said it like it was a ceiling. You stare at the number on your screen for longer than makes sense. Then you close the laptop. There is no one to call. That is the sentence you were not prepared for. This moment has a shape in your imagination. Celebration. Acknowledgement. Someone who understands exactly what this number means in the context of where it came from. But the person you most want to call is your mother, and she doesn't have the context to understand what $6,400 in a month means relative to the break room, and the $3,400 and the 2 a.m. kitchen table. Explaining it would require explaining everything. You don't have the energy for everything tonight, so you sit with it. You let it be real. You go to sleep. What changes? You believe for the first time in a way that is not performance. Before, you knew intellectually that the ceiling was breakable. Now you know it in your body. That is the difference between reading about altitude and standing somewhere the air is thinner. What gets worse? The stakes. Because now it's real, which means now it can be lost. Level 5, the crossing. You are 26 years old, and the number clears on a Wednesday. Not a dramatic Wednesday. You are sitting at a desk in the second bedroom of an apartment you rent, and you run the numbers the way you have run them every month for 3 years. And this time, the net worth column clears 7 figures. $1,040,000. A number with your name attached to it. A number that has never existed in your family's history before this moment. You check it twice. You close the spreadsheet. You open it again. You close it. You thought this would feel like a finish line, like the release of a breath held for 7 years. Instead, it is quiet. A specific, disorienting quiet. The quiet of crossing a threshold that nobody in your bloodline has ever crossed. There is no reference for this in your family's vocabulary. Your parents don't have a word for what you just became. The emotional language for this milestone does not exist in the house you grew up in. You call your mother. You talk for 20 minutes. She tells you about your cousin's new job, the neighbor's dog, a recipe she tried. You listen. You tell her you're doing well. She tells you to eat something real, not just whatever's fast. You don't mention the number. Not because you are hiding it, because you don't know how to say it without it sounding like something it isn't. Like standing on one side of a river and shouting across it. The words would arrive. You were not sure the meaning would. Here is what the money does immediately. It solves the problems you have had for years and reveals an entirely new set of problems you didn't know existed. Tax structures, asset protection, investment vehicles. You grew up in a house where the financial strategy was keeping enough in the account until the next paycheck. Nobody left you a manual for this. And then something else settles in slowly over the weeks after. You could write a check right now that would end your mother's financial worry permanently. Pay off the car. Cover the bills that tighten her jaw. Give her the thing she has been quietly not asking for her entire adult life. You don't know how to do it without changing something irreversible between you. The money is real. The distance it might create is also real. You sit with both and don't resolve them tonight. Level 6. The gap. You go home for the holidays. Same house, same smell in the walls. Same table that's slightly uneven and gets a folded paper towel under one leg. Everything the same and everything different. You pay for dinner. You say it's nothing. Your father says you didn't have to. You say you wanted to. There is a silence after that exchange that lasts exactly long enough to be uncomfortable. Then someone changes the subject and everyone moves on and nobody mentions it again. But it happened. It will keep happening. Your cousin is 28. He works in logistics. $41,000 a year. 2 kids. He makes a comment at the table that sounds like a joke about your work, something about sitting at a laptop all day. And it lands wrong in a way that nobody acknowledges. You smile. He smiles. You both know the moment passed uncleanly. You bought a car last month. A good one. You didn't tell him. That specific omission, not lying, just not mentioning, is where the guilt lives. Not the abstract guilt of having more. The specific guilt of editing your own life before showing it to people you love, because you don't know how to show all of it without making them feel the distance. Old friends start treating you differently. Some become quieter around you in a way that feels like self-consciousness. Some become louder, testing, probing, looking for the version of you that would prove you haven't changed. When they can't find him, they don't know what to do with the one they found instead. The drift begins. Not dramatic, no confrontations. Just 2 boats that were once tied together and someone quietly letting out the rope. By the time you notice how far apart you've drifted, the shore where you started is just a shape in the distance. Level 7. The weight. You are 28 years old and the business generates $340,000 annually and employs 6 people. You have no map for what comes next. Nobody in your family can tell you how to hold this, how to pass it on, how to make sure it outlasts you. Generational wealth is not a number. It is an architecture. Trusts, structures, entities, the legal and financial infrastructure that carries money across generations and doesn't let it dissolve back into nothing by the 3rd one. Nobody taught you architecture. You are building the blueprint and living in the building at the same time. Your family looks at you differently now. There is pride in it, genuine, chest-swelling pride that moves you every time you see it. But there is also a subtle shift that nobody asked for. You have become the one they call, not just for money, for everything. Decisions, problems, whether your aunt should take the settlement, whether your brother should take the job offer. You are somehow the authority now, which is strange, because you are still figuring yourself out. You just look stable from the outside. In the quiet moments, early morning, before the day has demands, you feel something that doesn't have a clean name. Not regret, not loneliness, not pride. Something like weight. The weight of being the one who made it. The weight of a family tree that stops bending under a specific kind of pressure the moment it reaches you. The weight of knowing that everything you build now echoes forward. Not just through your own life, but through lives that don't exist yet. You carry it. You get used to it. You would not put it down. Level 8. The floor. You are 32 years old and your niece is 14. She is growing up in the same city you grew up in. She goes to a better school than you went to. She has never lived in a house where money ran out before the end of the month. She doesn't know why. She assumes that's just what houses are like. She has never seen the ceiling, because you removed it before she was old enough to look up. She will not know about the break room at 6:15 a.m., the $3,400 that became $820, the 40% revenue drop in November with no explanation, the Tuesday the number cleared and there was no one to call, the holiday dinner silence after you paid, the car you didn't mention to your cousin. She will look up and see open sky and assume that is just what sky looks like. Unlimited, obvious, available. That is the whole point. That was always the whole point. You didn't do this for a trophy. You did this so the next one doesn't have to start where you started. You took the invisible ceiling and made it the floor. The coffee can above the refrigerator is gone. In its place, accounts your grandmother couldn't have named, structures your father never knew existed, a starting line that sits a generation ahead of the one you were handed. You didn't just cross a finish line, you moved one. Somewhere right now, a teenager is lying in bed in a house where money runs out before the end of the month, doing the math on what it would take. The number seems impossible, not unreachable, a different category entirely. There is something wrong in their chest, low grade, static, a sense that the map they have been handed doesn't match the terrain they are standing on. They don't have a word for it yet. They will.